Welcome to the GRN, the Growth and Resilience Network, where every episode brings you targeted stories and strategies about professional and personal growth and resilience. Hi, I'm Steve Piscitelli, your host, coming to you from my headquarters, my world headquarters, here in Atlantic Beach, Florida. I know you've heard people talk about work-life balance, and lately the concept has changed. It's morphed a little bit to work-life integration or work-life harmony, flexibility, flow. And the point, we all juggle a lot in our lives. Today, we get a chance to explore the topic of work-life integration with a specific focus on people with disabilities. In addition to the usual work-life demands, our friends, family members, coworkers, neighbors with disabilities have additional challenges to address on a daily basis. How do they do it? What services are available for them? What services do they need? My guest today will turn us on to a unique program that provides rehabilitative services through sports, and it's an award-winning program. We have Miss Alice Krauss in the studio. She's the program manager for the Brooks Adaptive Sports and Recreation Program in Jacksonville, Florida. She provided the creative spark a decade ago to get this program up and running. And while sports remain a major focus in the service delivery, the Brooks program looks at a much loftier goal of improving quality of life. Alice and her team focus on the 3 F's: fun, fitness, and friendship in their quest to improve quality of life for their clients. So Alice, you don't know how grateful I am that you have carved out time from your very hectic schedule to sit down with us today. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
And we're glad you're here. So let's start with some questions, and we'll just see where this evolves, okay?
Okay.
Good. All right. So first, tell us a little bit about you. Who is Alice Krauss, and why did you connect to this particular program?
Okay. I am an occupational therapist, and I have worked at Brooks Rehabilitation since 1983, actually. I know that's very unusual to stay with the same company, but it's been a great journey for me. And throughout my tenure at Brooks, I have had an opportunity to work both in and outpatient services. For about 10 years, I was an inpatient manager of both occupational therapy and therapeutic recreation, and during that time, I had an opportunity to get to know a lot of our customers and clients throughout many, many years. I was involved in community-based support groups, and I had an opportunity to see what evolved in their lives after they left our care. So about in the early 90s, many of your listeners may not remember this, but in the early 90s there was a dramatic shift in the way healthcare was delivered. And for us in the rehabilitation industry, it had a great impact on our ability to serve our customers, our patients, and the outcomes that we were able to help them achieve. So in the early 90s, before the healthcare changes, if somebody had a traumatic injury or an illness, they might stay with us for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. And during that time, we were really able to provide them exactly what they needed. And we were allowed to keep them there until we felt like they were ready to get reintegrated back into the community, because that is the ultimate goal of rehabilitation, is community reintegration. And so after about 1994, when the healthcare changes came along, that same patient that might have stayed with us for 6 months would now stay with us maybe only 2 or 3 weeks. And so it was a dramatic shift in what we were able to help the patient achieve and also our outcomes. And for many, many years, we just continued to do what we did the best that we could, and over time I noticed that folks were coming back into our facilities, into our lives in any way. I'd run into them in the grocery store, and their narrative would be the same. As an occupational therapist, I am very interested in people's life stories. That's really the basis of my professional background. And what I saw more often than not was that when people left our care, they were not able to sustain the gains that they had made because there was just inadequate support in the community. So they may have made great progress. We do good work at Brooks. So they would make very good progress in the short period of time that we were allowed to treat them. But when they would get out into the community without adequate support, they would experience what I call the downward spiral to the quality of life.
So there wasn't sufficient follow through with the right people and people who could help them with whatever you were doing.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So the impetus for the change in healthcare was really reimbursement, of course. No big surprise there. So as reimbursement decreased, the length of stay that we were allowed to serve our patients went down, and so they would go out into the community, and there would be not enough funding for programs and services, and so they would really be kind of on their own to make a go of it. And what I saw year after year, story after story, was that people were really unsuccessful in that attempt to make a go of it.
Would they end up back in your program? Or could they come back? Would they be eligible to come back? So they made progress, you released them, then they don't make progress, they kind of go back toward where they were. Could they come back to Brooks?
There is a window for that in the insurance industry, whether that's commercial insurance or whether it's state or federally funded care. But it's really hard for people to navigate in the healthcare environment.
Yeah.
So they may have an episode or a change in their life that would justify a return to inpatient or outpatient rehabilitation, but it's like the average healthcare consumer does not know that. And so they go about their lives, and what I noticed, that this downward spiral to the quality of their life was characterized by two main things. And the two main things was social isolation and physical inactivity. And those two things frequently combined and created secondary health complications.
Did it make a difference what their injury was, what their disability had been, as to whether or not that downward spiral went quicker, was more severe, or was it just pretty much across the board what you were finding with most, if not all, of your clients?
Well, that's a great research question, Steve. I don't know the answer to that, but what I can tell you just through my own professional experience is that it didn't matter. It didn't matter what their disability was. What did have an impact and affect outcomes was their personal resilience. And I know that's a topic of interest to you, and it's a topic of interest to me as well, because that seemed to be one of the key indicators of success. And the other one was not money, but emotional support. So we saw a lot of folks who really were successful because they had people in their corner helping them, even if they didn't have a penny to their name.
Right.
And then we saw people with absolutely no resources, family, no money, no anything, and they kind of climbed back up and did okay. But I will tell you that, just to estimate, I would say that's maybe less than 1% of the people that have that success.
And as you're talking, Alice, I'm hearing, at least from Alice, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit because you're going to talk a little bit about your team, but there was empathy coming through in what you were talking about. You were sensing this when you see them. You're sensitive to that. Just meeting them in a store, meeting them on the street, and you could just see things aren't, if not bad, they're not what they could be. And that takes a special person. All right, so let's go. Now enter the Brooks Adaptive Sports and Recreation Program. So as I had said to you off mic, I'm a fifth grader here. Explain it to me. What is this program?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you just one more thing about really the reason that Brooks Rehabilitation opened this program in 2007. So what I saw was the root source of this failure to thrive, if you will, out in the community was the social isolation and the physical inactivity. And that created those secondary health complications from depression to obesity to cardiac, diabetes, suicide, and all the rest. And so it really created this downward spiral to the quality of life. And I thought that Brooks should use both our expertise and our resources to create a solution. So our vision and mission is all about creating innovative solutions for rehabilitation problems that will help people achieve health and full participation in life. So I approached our executives and said, I think we have an opportunity to really make a difference in the health of our community. The healthcare industry has changed, and I think we have an opportunity. And kudos to our executive group, Doug Baer, Michael Spiegel, and our board of directors, and they agreed and put together the resources to start this program in 2007. So I give you that background because you said, what is the program? So if you just look at the program on the outside, it's a sports program. But that's not the program that we developed. We really developed a program that is based on addressing those two root sources of the problem, the social isolation and the physical inactivity. So what our program is, kind of on the top level, is a sports program, and we are a robust sports program. We have 13 to 15 activities every single week, and we have 2 to 3 special events a month, and all of our programs run year-round. So we're very, very busy. We have a diverse program by design. So we recognize that the community of individuals living with disability are very diverse. So all ages, all abilities. Some people are up and walking and they have invisible disabilities, and some people can't move anything but their eyeballs. And some people are born with their condition or their illness, and some people have progressive conditions or have an accident. And we really strive to throw out the net over the largest number of people. And so we have to create very diverse programming to meet the needs of all those individuals.
And what's interesting, so many things interesting, is that this has been sustainable for a decade. It's not one of those one and done, here's a year grant, go out and see what you can do, and then it's over. You have sustained this, and the little bit I know about it, that's no small feat, where you have multiple events every week. And you just keep on going, and you keep on giving, and you keep on developing. And again, the little bit I know of your program, Alice, you don't have a huge staff. You've got people that are really committed to this. And you have a lot of, well, I don't know if it's a lot, but a lot of your staffing, a lot of your team are volunteers, correct?
Well, yes. So a couple things there. It is amazing, and we're very unique across the country in that we have been sustainable. So when I proposed this program in 2006 so that we could open in 2007, that was a directive that I was given from our board of directors and executives, that this was to be sustainable, that they were making a commitment forever to the community in this program. Because when I went out and held focus groups and things like that to try to figure out where was the need, where was there an unmet need in the community, people said, yeah, we've heard this before. Somebody comes and somebody goes. Somebody opens a little program and then they close down. Yeah. So really our executives and our board of directors made a commitment to keep this program up and running and budgeted forever. Yeah. So I give all the credit to them for the sustainability of this program. But you did mention something very important, and that is my team. I have an incredibly hardworking and dedicated team. And they completely understand and integrate the vision and mission of the program. They're not occupational therapists. It's based on an occupational therapy frame of reference, but they fully get it. And each and every one of my staff served as a volunteer for a long time before they became official team members.
Right.
And I can't say enough about my team. I couldn't do a day's work without their hard, dedicated efforts. They
also says something to your hiring practice or your selection practice to get a team, because that's tough. That's tough. You have a lot of turnover, and it hurts the clients, hurts the mission. But from what I'm hearing, these folks have been with you.
They have. It's. I feel as much as it's my life's work, I feel like they consider it their life's work as well, and I'm very, very thankful for them each and every day. You also mentioned volunteers. We have a very small staff. Last year we served about 650 people across those 15 to 20 activities each and every week, and we have staff at each one of them. We could not run all these programs and serve these hundreds of people across all these events without our volunteer support. And we have volunteers who dedicate hours every single week, either as a coach or unloading equipment or lifting folks that are paralyzed. We even have a dedicated core group that travel with us and leave their friends and their family for no compensation, but to enable folks to do the things that they want and need to do, which is what our program is all about. So there is really no difference other than a lack of a paycheck between the volunteer staff and the paid staff.
And you brought up resilience, and as you were describing what your volunteers are doing, your team does on a regular basis, and it's and if I misarticulate this, correct me, please. You're working with a challenging population with many life challenges that your folks have to confront professionally, empathetically, every time they meet these people. It can be draining on the staff. How do they stay? I mean, I know you work out, so that's one way that Alice stays alive. How does your staff stay on top of it for themselves so that they don't burn out on this?
I feel quite certain that it's the same for all of us, and that is that we get so much back from the relationships we build. It's very much a relationship-based program. It is, it's community. Yeah. And that, I know, fuels me. I can spend a whole week behind a computer screen and in meetings, and I'll be, feel like I'm too exhausted to go to an activity. I go to an activity and I walk in and I have enough gas in my tank for another, month or two. Yeah. And so I think it's the same for them.
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be. And it has, I would think it has something to do with the leadership. You've given credit and kudos to your board and your executive, but I think also probably Ms. Krauss would have to get some credit for this. Let's go a little deeper. This is more than a sports program, and it is sports. You do all sorts of sports, and some of your folks are competitive, if that's the right term. They're athletes. And others are in it because of the socialization aspect of it, and they're stretching and they're getting some movement, and they get to be with their community. This is a holistic program you're dealing with here. I mean, it's not just, let's put a ball through a hoop.
Right.
That becomes the mechanism, the delivery service, but it's so much more.
It is, and I appreciate you recognizing that from our conversations. It is a lot more than a sports program, and that's why I am thankful for the opportunity to talk a little bit about it. It is based on an occupational therapy frame of reference, and occupational therapy is a profession that promotes health, well-being, and quality of life by using everyday activity that is meaningful to the individual. And although this is a completely free service that Brooks provides, it is based on enabling people to do the everyday activities that they want and need to do that promote health and well-being, and that because of their disabling condition, there is some barrier to their ability to participate in that. So we are constantly, my profession of occupational therapy is based on the integration of the mind, the body, and the spirit. So in every one of our activities, we are very intentionally designing our service to address not only the physical needs of the individual and their family, but also the social and emotional as well. So it is very much more than that. We have folks who really just need to get out of the house. They're just having a dark day, and they may come to rugby, they may come to bowling, they may come to rowing, and they're not really up to physically engaging in the activity, but the socialization, seeing their friends, getting a hug, seeing a smile, getting an encouraging word is really key. And that is intentionally built into our service. So we work very hard on making sure that not only the staff from the Adaptive Sports and Recreation Program, but also our volunteers know that that's our responsibility to ensure that folks are as physically and socially engaged in each and every one of our activities as possible.
Yeah, there's a Chinese character in the alphabet that consists of two characters and is for crisis. And the two characters stand for, the first one, time of danger, and the second one, time of opportunity. And you're someone, a little bit I know about Alice Krauss is that you're positive, you're upbeat, you see opportunity. You saw it here with this program. So I'm going to switch to the time of danger a little bit, okay, to the challenge for the program. Talk a little bit, I mean, if somebody's out there listening and say, you know, this is cool, I'd like to see if we could do this in our community. What is, if you can, in a brief manner, what's an obstacle to getting a program like this off the ground? What's an obstacle to sustainability?
I think that finances would be the biggest obstacle. So we are the largest and most diverse program in the country. And so when people come to activities that we host, and we've had people come from other countries, and they say, how did you do it? How does this work? And I always say, the primary reason that we got this program off the ground is because Brooks Rehabilitation committed to the vision. And they understood that it was our responsibility and our opportunity to impact the health of our community through this program. And that's why we didn't make just a sports program, because it really had to be tied to the organization's mission and vision. So without that commitment, I think it's very hard for communities to duplicate this. I'm happy to help in any way I can, but that is always where the conversation goes awry, is when I say, well, first you're going to need some dollars, and then there are a lot of other resources. But if you don't have the dollars to get it off the ground, from the capital expenses of the equipment, we have probably 225 pieces of equipment stored in trailers, and it's a huge investment. Just the equipment, not to mention renting of facilities and the labor and the recruitment and administration. We're planning activities each and every day. That means we need to move staff, equipment. We have to have a venue. We have to have volunteer support. We have to have water. It's a lot, and that's each and every day, and there's a dollar amount associated with each one of those resources.
And folks could go to your website is brooksadaptivesportsandrecreation.com.
Yes.
Right? Now, and you had very graciously said reach out to you. Could they get to you through that website?
They can, or they could. I think they can. It will go to the department mailbox.
Okay, great. So they can.
Absolutely.
Because this starting something like this, you need to have a change agent in the community, and then you need to have somebody in addition. It might be the change agent like you and your board. Then you need someone who's going to be the work agent. Someone this is not going to run itself.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Right. How about one story? And when I remember when I asked you this when we were talking a week or so ago, and I said, how about one of those success stories? And you said you thought about 6 immediately. So it's really hard to do that, I know. Can you share something that jumps out and you say, this is what keeps me going?
Well, when you put it that way, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I did when we had that brief conversation last week. And I said, I don't think I can choose just one story. But what made it easy is I had a conversation with one of our participants last night. So I'm going to share her story.
Okay.
But I will tell you that everyone that's involved in this program and serving this population, and it's not only the population is the participants that are living with disability, but it's also their families. And we, by design and by budget, serve the families as much as the individual with a disability, because we recognize that disability is a family affair. And so I was talking with one of our participants last night, and I told her that, would she mind if I shared her story? But there are literally hundreds of people that I carry in my heart every day. So it was this was the toughest thing that I knew you were going to ask me. But our program is holistic, like I said, the mind, body, spirit. And I think this one woman's experience with us really is a great example of what Brooks provides our community through this program. But anyway, so this is a woman who suffered a stroke when she was about 50 years old. She'd been very, very active. She was a college athlete in basketball. She had a scholarship, in fact. She went to the gym every single day. She worked full time. And one day she was driving to the gym. She had become a CrossFit trainer when she was 48 years old.
Oh, wow.
Somebody approached her, saw her drive and determination, and said, "You need to be a CrossFit instructor."
Wow.
And so she became a CrossFit instructor about 4 years into that period of time, driving to work to run a class, and she had a stroke. And the stroke caused her to run into the back of the car in front of her, and thankfully the gentleman who came to her assistance recognized that she was having a stroke. She fought her way back to being able to live at home with some assistance, but she really never found her drive again. And she tells the story of not really finding her identity again. She was an athlete, she was a competitor, she was driven, she was physically active, she was an instructor, she was a leader, and now she can't move part of her body, she can't think and see things the same way. She's lost her social circle, and she's depressed, and she's sinking. She is sinking. So after a few years, her sisters who live in Jacksonville said, you got to come live with us because you're drifting away from us. And so she came to Jacksonville about 3 years ago, and she started participating in our program, doing a lot of things she'd never done before. She was immediately obsessed with our program. She participates in at least one thing, almost every single day. And this is a woman who still has a lot of struggles. She's not able to dress herself. She's not able to drive because of her vision problems. She has a lot of challenges each and every day, and yet she finds the energy to come out to this program, and she has not only improved physically, she did the Donna 26.2 in a recumbent cycle.
For those listening that don't know what the Donna is, it's a marathon. Started here by, I guess Donna was a news anchor who experienced breast cancer, and then started a marathon to raise awareness and funds. And I think it's connected with Mayo. I don't know if I think it's an official sponsor.
Yes, Mayo is an official sponsor.
And so now it has been an event in the community. So now she is participating in that. That's pretty cool. She is participating.
It was the inaugural group at the 10th anniversary of the Donna. It was the inaugural group, and we had 20 people who participated in either hand cycles or wheelchair racers. And this woman was out there competing, really finding who she is and was. And she told me last night, she said, "I really don't know what I would do if I didn't have this program. This is my family."
Wow.
And she said, "We text each other every day. I wake up in the morning and I think, what am I going to do?" On the days that we offer our adaptive yoga, she always texts me and just says, "Namaste today." So she really attributes the opportunity to reconnect with her previous passions and find a new way to new things that give her fulfillment and health, well-being, and quality of life through this program.
That's a powerful story. That really is. Man, we could go for an hour. However, let me I'm going to end with two things, but the first one is I'm going to throw it to you, and it's going to be basically your call. And I just put this in the category of what have I missed? What question did I not ask you? Or what challenge did you want to discuss? Or what accomplishment? What's one thing you want to make sure before we turn the machine off, stop the recording, that you get this across that I haven't allowed you to yet?
And so do I get two things?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm going to give you a second thing, too.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Another question.
Well, the simple thing is
But if you want two, you can take two.
Okay. If any of your listeners, either themselves or somebody that they know, has a disability or would like to volunteer in our program or would like to make a donation to our program, those are our three big needs, is getting the word out to people. We serve 600 people, but we know there are 150,000 people just in Jacksonville that could benefit from our program. So getting the word out to people living with disability, getting the word out to people who might like to volunteer and support this effort, and getting the word out to folks who might want to support it financially. We have a pretty aggressive fundraising goal this year, so I would appreciate that.
That is cool. And what I was going to move into for the second of the last two was what I always call a call to action, and you've touched on this a little bit with that, what they could do, especially for folks who are local. Again, somebody listening to this, across the country, and we touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to maybe finish with it, is this isn't unique to Jacksonville in Northeast Florida. This need that these needs that you are satisfying or that you're at least addressing, they're all over the country, these challenges. So if I'm sitting in Nebraska or in the state of Washington and I say, we got that here, what can I do? What can I do? Even I'm not an occupational therapist. I don't have the inside track like you have. But I know there's a need. What can I do?
I think you can start to rally the troops. Like I said, the first thing that you need is you need some money to get this started. So expressing, I think there are a couple avenues. You can approach private industry like I did. Brooks is a non-for-profit and obviously my employer, so that was an obvious. But that's probably a really good place to start, is somebody in the rehabilitation industry, because by definition, rehabilitation should encompass return to community. And so what happened with those healthcare changes is we were no longer able to return people to community at the same level of independence and quality of living.
Gotcha.
So I would say reach out to an organization, and my first suggestion would be a rehabilitation organization to sponsor such a program.
They get it. And maybe it's just you. If you're out there listening and you say, I'd like to do something, but I don't know what, as Alice said, you reach out to a local group that works in rehabilitation at some level, and maybe you just have an information sharing meeting. You just put a call out to the community. Maybe you just start with on your own block and have a coffee one day and just talk about it, but get it going. And I would say that there's probably an Alice Krauss in your neighborhood that would be willing to help you. Well, one could only hope, right, Alice? All right, I'm going to finish with 4 questions that are totally off the subject of what we've talked about. Just totally. I love to do this with my guests. I don't tell them I'm going to do it. Unless they've done homework and listened to the podcast, they could hear it on something. So this is just for fun. Your least favorite word?
Well, I could sit here all day, so I'm just going to say what came to my mind. Can't.
Can't. Excellent. All right. Your favorite word?
Empower.
If Alice Krauss is a weather forecast, what is the forecast today?
Determined. Thankful. Hopeful.
And all good
loving.
words. That's not a bad forecast, is it?
Well, sometimes it makes for a rough day.
Yeah, it can be exhausting.
Yes.
Yeah. And the last one, you talked about quality of life. From your perspective, not from Brooks, but from Alice Krauss' perspective, what's the secret to quality of life? What's the secret sauce? Your perspective.
I would say community. That is true in my own life, and I think that is why I have tried so hard to build that in to the service we provide through the Adaptive Sports and Recreation Program. I think having a community, having one or more people that love you, care about you, support you, and that you have the opportunity to give that back in return. I think that that is the key to the quality in my life. And if the hundreds of testimonials that I've heard over the last 10 years are true, that would be the same thing that our Northeast Florida community and the adaptive sports and recreation community feel to be true as well.
Well stated. Alice,
Phew.
thank you. You did well. No, that's excellent. And thanks again I know you're busy. You're going off to a program right now as soon as you leave. So thank you so much. Once again, folks, you go to Brooks Adaptive Sports and Recreation.com. I'll put that up in the YouTube version of this. And you can see more about what they're doing. And as Alice said, you can reach out to her or somebody else on her team if you have some questions. And I thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Without you, there is no Growth and Resilience Network. I thank you for sharing our podcast with your family, friends, colleagues, and community leaders, especially a podcast like this episode. It is so powerful. And if the community leaders know about it, there might be somebody there that this really strikes a chord with. So reach out, send it to them. And if you have a few moments, please consider posting a review on iTunes of this particular episode. Visit my website, stevepiscitelli.com, for more information about upcoming conversations on the GRN and about my programs and other resources for your personal growth and resilience. And while you're there, you can sign up for my email and newsletter list. I promise I will never spam you. So until we meet again, either virtually or somewhere in person around this great nation, this is Steve Piscitelli from my world headquarters in Atlantic Beach, Florida, reminding all of us to choose well, live well, and be well. Bye-bye, folks.